welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, welcome to my channel. I am Ebony, and this is
Frank.
my husband. And on my channel, I do a lot of talking about relationships and how to prepare for marriage. So I thought it was only natural that I actually bring on my husband, who you've heard me talk about before, as well as I have a video on my channel letting you know how I knew he was the one. So we just wanted to come on today to let you all know how we met and our love story. I give a little bit of details throughout different videos, but just so that you have the overall story on how God blessed us and how he did a work in both of us when we were single prior to meeting each other, and then aligned our paths so that we could come together and meet and date, court, whatever you want to call it, and get married. So we're not going to prolong you. We're going to get into it. And I guess what? You want me to start off? You start off. We tell our story. How you want to do it?
You start off.
He's gonna act like he's not much of a talker, but this man talks a lot, a lot. So, I guess I'll start with how I came to know who he was. So, we met first off through my sister, my baby sister. Her and Frank worked together, and at the time, and he can share where he was as well. But at the time, for me, I always knew I wanted to be married, but I was having the hardest time in my single season, which is why now I try to help empower and encourage and inspire other women in their single season because I had to learn a lot before God opened the door for me to meet him. And I just really had a hard time. I wasn't picking the right guys. I was doing a lot of praying, but not actually putting, my faith in the things that I was learning actually to work. So when my sister first told me about him, she told me that I have this guy you want to meet. I don't know if you're dating. I used to always say I'm dating Jesus as a way for people not to bother me about dating or trying to hook me up with somebody. So she told me his name. She was like, I'm not even trying to hook you up. She was like, I just think that y'all have a lot in common. And if nothing else, that y'all would be really good friends. So I kind of like brushed it off or whatever. I actually was in a situationship at the time and it was horrible. It was terrible. I'll give my testimony on that one day. But anywho, time went by and she would periodically bring him back up. And even to the point, she was like, let me just have a cookout and invite him over. And that way you can casually meet. And if you don't like him and it's awkward or whatever the case may be, you don't have to ever worry about seeing him again. And I was like, nah, no, I just wasn't in the mood for that. Honestly, I was trying to figure out what was going on with me in the situationship. So that was the real truth on why I didn't want to proceed with anything. And I've always been the type, even though my single season was a hot mess, I've always been the type that I didn't want to open up a new door before I closed a door that was currently open. So that was a big part of it as well. But she would still, periodically bring him up, and tell me she wanted me to meet him. And I would just kind of like still continue to brush it off. But make a long story short, how we actually came to meet, I think I detailed a little bit of it in a previous video. And I will link that video in the description box if you haven't seen that video. But I pretty much got to my end with the situationship. And it happened to be around Christmas time. And on Christmas Eve, I decided that like I wanted to go into the new year with a clean slate, not, still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with different areas of my life. I was actually in the process of looking to buy a house. I had a really good job. I had my own place. The only area of my life, and I was going back to school, going back to finish my degree. And so the only area of my life that I was, that was still up in the air for me was the area of relationship. And so I said a prayer and I asked God to give me a strong, clear sign since I obviously had a problem at that time seeing signs. but to give me a sign on whether or not I should close the door on that situationship. And I said that prayer, I went to bed, and the next morning when I woke up, he actually called me. And I thought that was actually a good sign because I'm like, okay, maybe there's going to be something that happens that let me know what's going to take place. But the conversation was terrible, horrible. It was everything I needed to know to just go ahead and shut that door. So I did shut the door, blocked them, deleted them, all that good stuff. And I went about my day. I was at my mother's house. My sister came over. We usually always get together for Christmas and the holidays. And so my sister came over. I'll never forget, my mom had made cornbread dressing and she was out of sage. And the only place we knew to go to get some sage was, I think, the dollar store is open. And so we went to the dollar store and I went in to get the sage while my sister sat in the car. And when I got back, she was like, "You're not dating anybody, are you?" And I was like, "Why?" And she was like, "Oh, I just talked to him, remember the barbecue guy?" And that was the nickname I had gave him since she asked me to meet him at a cookout. I used to call him, no, I don't. I used to say, I don't want to talk to the barbecue guy. So she was like, the barbecue guy texted me, like reached out to me, and he was asking about you. And is it okay if I give him your number? I didn't know that she had already did all of this, you know. So the crazy thing is when she asked me that before, I was always like, no. But for whatever reason, I told her yes. I was like, you can go ahead and give him my number. I knew I had closed the door to the other guy. And to be honest, if I'm truthful, I was like, you know what? I'll just kind of like keep him as my wingman. If I get lonely and want to go out on a date, he'll be who I call. If I'm bored, he'll be who I text. If I need a plus one or something, he'll be who I take. So, because I didn't want to get back into anything at that time. You know, like I said, I didn't know him. So, you know, I wasn't like friends on him or nothing like that. It's just that that's just where I was in my life at the time. So we exchanged, well, yes, we exchanged numbers, and he ended up calling me later on that day on Christmas. So I'm going to pause there and let you share where you were when my sister first told you about me, your side of the story.
Okay. Well, we were working together, like she said, and she told me, her sister likes to eat Thai food, and she likes some of the extravagant things, traveling, and like some of the same similar things that I did like. So she told me about her. I went online, of course, checked out her profile on Facebook, Instagram. I was like, okay, she's attractive, but you could be infatuated with beauty, but if the heart is not right and the mind is not right, you really don't have anything. So I really wanted to get a chance to really talk to her. So once I talked to her, and let me back up to say what happened on Christmas Day. I text her sister to wish her a Merry Christmas to her and her family, and her sister took it upon herself to ask me if I was single, if I was dating anyone. And at the time, no, I was not in a committed relationship. I had, like most single people in their single seasons, you have your rotation. But that got old, and I was really tired of rotating different people, but it was the same spirit. So pretty much I wanted something with some sustenance, something different. So when we finally did speak on Christmas Day, it was like a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you. It was like, okay, I like her, presentation. This sounds good, sounds promising, but we really hit it off. We spoke for maybe a couple of weeks, just consistently on the phone. And we really were just talking. We got to know each other in an accelerated amount of time because we spoke, we talked. Our values lined up, our core values lined up. That's another thing. If you don't have core values, you got to get you some, because the person that you're looking to get with, if it's all physical, it's not going to last. But I love the fact that she made me feel young again. And it wasn't just the puppy love or the beginning phases. It was the nature of our, conversing, us going back and forth, what we were talking about in life. We were both well seasoned. We were both experienced in life. We both had relationships that did not work. And we hit it off. We really hit it off. And I felt like she was the one. And, to be honest, I knew she was the one when I lost my job a few months after we started dating. So we started dating I want to say like the end of December, January. I lost my job February, and man, we didn't miss a beat. I was able to still propose a few
Right.
months later without a job,
Without a job.
without a job because I was very responsible with my finances. I did good for myself, and I was not, in the club popping bottles or doing crazy things. But anyway, long story short, went to meet our families. First went to Florida to meet my families there. Then I came back to Georgia to meet her dad, and I told her dad that I'm gonna marry your daughter, like in February, because I felt that we were gonna be that serious. Like if she was different from the relationships or the situationships or the hookups or whatever you want to call them when I was in my single season. It was different. This is what me courting a woman was supposed to be, if you know what I mean, pretty much. Like it felt like we were dating each other and getting to know each other. And so, I went ahead and bought a ring, proposed to her. Then I took her to New York to meet my family at my sister's baby shower. Everybody loved her. Everybody, my mom loved her. My mom really loved her. So, she's like, that's a good woman right there. Don't mess that up. So it's all about the heart and the mind and the spirit. So before you even get married to someone, your spirit have to be yoked in some kind of way, whether it's gonna be yoked in a good way or a bad way.
Right.
But you're gonna know if this person is good for you or not. It's not gonna take 5 years, 10 years to figure out if you need to move forward with someone.
You hear that, ladies? It don't take that long for a man to know what he wants.
Right. So if you're going in circles with a guy, it's because he's playing games or he's not taking you that serious, or you have a roster and you're just falling in line, whether fourth, fifth, whatever spot it is, you're not number one. So in your single season, the thing is too, we're gonna date who we want to date, but try not to juggle a bunch of people because it takes away from the one that could be the one that's right for you, and you're giving your attention to somebody that's just gonna waste your time. So that's it.
And I will say, to add to that part, for me as a woman, initially with meeting him, something that I know happens a lot of the time with women who have been in previous bad relationships. So when I met him, like you just said, we ended up talking on Christmas Day. And one of the things that I loved about him is that a lot of guys that I had been meeting right off the bat, they want to Netflix and chill. They want to come to your house. They want you to come to their house if they have a house or a place for you to come to. But that's another story for another day. But you can tell from their motives and when you first meet what their intentions are. And I love that when we first started talking that first day, immediately it was us getting to know each other, our likes, dislikes. He was trying to get to know me to find out what would be a good first date. It wasn't like no hangout type of stuff, like, and we got all of the questions out of the way initially, because I know sometimes people think it's taboo to bring up marriage and children and all that stuff when you first meet somebody. But just so you know, I don't think I said it in our introduction, but we're both in our 40s. We met I was in my early 30s. You're what, 5 years older than me?
Yeah, I was late 30s when I met you.
Yeah, I was getting ready to turn 33. So you were 38.
Yeah, I was late 30s, yes.
Yeah, so we are like, later in life, we don't have time. We didn't have time at that time to be playing games. We both got it out that we knew we wanted to be married. We wanted to have kids. And I feel like you should do that right off bat, because why waste your time? Why go out on dates with people and 3 months in you find out that he's been married twice and he don't want to get married again? Like, you wasted time. So we were definitely asking questions that were important and that were serious, so that we weren't wasting any more of our time. But and also we've been married. In January will be 8 years. I had to make sure I didn't mix up the years we've been dating with the years we got married. So in December we will have been together for 9 years, but in January we'll be celebrating our 8th wedding anniversary. But yeah, so because we did those things in the very beginning of our relationship, we were intentional with our dating. And that's what led to him proposing 4 months into us dating. And I'll be honest, initially, I would say within the first couple of weeks, now he checked off everything on my list. of what I could see, because of course we had to continue dating for me to, you know, get below the surface and see who he was and all that kind of good stuff. But initially, upon meeting him and talking to him and getting to know him, he was what I was looking for in a man and a future husband and a father. Also, I'll add that too, neither one of us had any children coming into our relationship with each other. And that was actually really important as well because he had had not so good experiences with dating women with children. I was okay with dating a man that had children because I felt like I knew that, of course, God can do anything, but I'm like, I'm older. The men that I meet are going to be older. So it's going to be more likely that they are at least going to have one child. So I didn't take that off my list as far as I didn't want to date anyone with children, but he did. And that was very important. That was something that, of course, I needed to know because, hey, if you don't want to date a woman with children and I have one, what we need to go on a date for? So that's why that communication, that what they call surface level sometimes talk, needs to happen. And that's why you don't need to be running out with people that you meet, and you need to be talking, getting to know them first. And I'm talking about like on the phone. Like we talked, was it a week before we actually saw each other in person?
Yes.
It was towards the end of the year and New Year's was going on and all that stuff. So, but we literally had that high school like talk, like, I had to get up and go to work at 8 in the morning and we were staying up to like 4 and 5 o'clock on the phone because our conversations were just that good. I found out so much about him in a week and vice versa with me. So I feel like that's very important. It might not work out the same way for everybody, but definitely I feel like you want to have conversations with people, especially nowadays. It's crazy out there. Don't be just meeting up with people and like it's just not safe. But back to what I was saying about me, I had a wall up because, like I said, I had been through a lot relationship wise. I've been engaged 2.5 times. I say 2.5 because the half was a relationship where he actually had the ring and asked my parents to marry me. But I knew he was a dog and he was cheating, and that the ring was probably just a means to like drag me along. What do you call it? Drag me,
String you along.
string. There you go. String me along. Even longer. And so that's why I say 2.5. But those relationships didn't work out, and so it did affect me. Like I was very cautious, especially when I met him and everything seemed to be too close to perfect. So I had a wall up and he was trying to get to know me even more and, really trying to intentionally date me. But I was kind of like, giving him a little pushback, but I had to pray over it. And I asked God, he's always answered my prayers. And I just asked him, if this is from you, give me a sign. If it's not, slam the door shut. I was okay with that. And it's like I told him, I said that prayer and things got better. Like he was showing me even more things that was giving me a sign that he was the one. And my feelings started to change. Like that wall that I had started to come down. And so we just went with that and went into our dating season. And when I say dating season, we had a good dating season, which is why I always tell women to get yourself together. Use your single season not to spend your time just waiting, like actively live your life. Like I said, we met that December, that January, I was going to be looking for a house. I was going to be starting school to finish my degree. Like things were like really good. I literally had put out of my mind about waiting for God to send me my husband. And prior to that, oh my God, anybody that I would meet or see that I thought I was attracted to, I immediately was like, is he the one? Could he be the one? I was just obsessed, honestly, with finding the one that I would be married to. And as soon as I put that thought out of my mind, here he comes. So when people tell you like when you least expect it, it'll happen, or when you stop thinking or wanting it, it will happen. That was very true, for us, because I was ready to go on and live my life. And not to mention, one of the things on my list for my future husband was that I wanted him and I to have a friendship. I said, I want to be friends with my husband. And so in my mind, I thought, well, if that's going to be the case, the person that God is going to send me, stuff isn't going to be quick, like we're going to have to take time to get to know each other, build up this friendship and then, but God had other plans as usual. Many are the
Of course.
plans. So, and it worked in our favor. God is also a redeemer and restorer of time. So don't ever think that you're getting too old, for marriage, or, it's too late for you.
Right.
Like I said, we met in our 30s, mid 30s. When we had our first child, I was 37 or 38. He was already in his 40s. We have two little ones. We currently have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old. And so it's like all the stuff that I thought I would have missed out on while I was single because I didn't get married till later in my 30s. Like, God has restored all of that. Like, we lived our best life while we were dating because I think it took us, 3 to 4 years before we started having kids. But we lived our life. We had time to date. I remember my mom telling me, she was like, dang, y'all do stuff every weekend, don't you? Yep, we do. We was traveling. We was enjoying ourselves. We were financially stable, in our lives, which is why I go back to use your single season to get yourself together and prepare yourself for marriage. You'll thank yourselves later, once God does bring the one for you into your life.
Right. And I want to use a word that you used earlier, intentional. And people put a time frame on when things should happen. But if you're intentional, it don't take 5, 6, 7 months for you to really get to know someone. It all depends on the level of you guys going back and forth and talking about real things. You could be talking about spending money, hanging out all day long, but what's the fruit? What kind of fruit are you going to yield from those seeds? If you're planting seeds of, hanging out and not getting serious with someone, then guess what? That's what you're going to reap. So intentionality, that's the word right there. That's the key. Are they intentional in making you a priority? Are you the only one that they're dealing with? Or if you're on a roster, also ask yourself, are you juggling 4 or 5 men? You know? So I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong, for you to find out who the person is that you're gonna give your time and your all to. But it comes a point where you can't juggle 2, 3 people trying to get serious with all of them. That's not gonna work. So it's gonna have to be one person that you're gonna give your time to, and you can find out in a real short amount of time, is this person gonna be for you or not? It's not gonna take 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. It could take however many weeks, days, or whatever. You can find out from the first conversation.
Right.
It all depends on your intentions of what you're trying to find out and what you're trying to ask. You're not gonna have to play a detective to deal with that person you're trying to get serious with. If you're going in circles or if you're confused, then most likely it's something there that's not right. But long story short, you got to be intentional. You have to know what you want. You got to work for it. It's not just going to fall in your lap. And you have to be that person before you look for the perfect person. You got to become that perfect person, like they say.
I mentioned that in the video too, to make sure that everything that you put on that list that you're praying for
Right.
in someone, that you
Right.
are that as well.
Right.
As a woman, we can't be wanting a guy who's physically fit, makes good money, who's gonna wine and dine us and do all of this and that, and then our credit is screwed up. We don't like working.
Right.
We're overweight and
Right.
unhealthy. Like, the man that you're
Right.
looking for is going to be
So-
wanting that same thing in a future wife. So you definitely, like I say, make good use of that single season.
So like society and social media have us all confused with telling us who we are and what we should be looking for.
Don't get me started on social media.
Right. So what I'm just saying is, no knock to females that have kids, because you could have had a baby with somebody that you truly loved and it just didn't work out.
Right.
That didn't disqualify them. But I was dealing with repetitiveness, females with kids, and the thing was how they carried themselves in their relationship with that person that they had a baby with. If this female thought it was okay to still spend time with this guy just because they have a baby, then I wouldn't get serious with her, because I know what that can lead to. If she felt like it was okay to keep in touch with exes from her past, then I wasn't okay with that. I know what it could lead to. So the things are, you got to have a system where you know what you want and you know what you don't want. And the person that you're courting and talking to, y'all got to be on the same page about that. You can't think one way when it comes to relationship and they think one way, and then you guys try to get together. Your values are not going to line up. So nothing else is going to line up other than you going out to eat, spending money together, and being physical. And that's the small part of, the spirituality side of getting married and being with someone. You got to really get to know the core of a person. When you're sick, are they going to pray for you? Do they pray? Do they go to church? So it's things like that matters if you're trying to get old with someone. And sometimes you might not find what you're looking for because you're presenting short-term energy. So you can't look for a husband and you acting like you a one-night stand. So you can't come across as something that you're not and then expect to get the result that you want. So if you want to be a wife, you have to live like a wife before you become a wife. If you want to be a girlfriend or fiance, you got to carry yourself like that first. You can't juggle 4 or 5 men. And if you're a man, I cut off females when I first dated my wife because I know that it's the same. It's different females, but they're all the same. When I started dating her and talking to her, it felt like a difference. So I had to cut that off. I cut them off and I was just courting and dating just her. People say, oh, that's cliche. Nobody's doing that anymore. Well, you're going to be out there in the world, keep going through the repetitive cycle of being single. You have to put your focus on this one person that you want to date. And then if it don't work, date another person. But you can't be on these, websites dating a bunch of people trying to hook up. And then eventually when it gets old, you say, I want to be a wife. No, you have to live like that first.
And then I would add, when you're dating someone, be intentional. You keep hearing us say the word intentional because you have to be if you want marriage. And one of the things I will say about with him is that we continued to be intentional after he proposed because, like we said before, he proposed to me 4 months into us dating. And we got married, I think maybe 9 months
After
after
that.
that. But that whole time that we were engaged, like we went through a lot. We went through some ups and downs. We had to deal with deaths in our family, like he mentioned earlier, job loss. Like there were different things that we went through that allowed us to really get to see who each other was because the person that you're with when everything is good, if that changes when everything is bad, that's not a good thing. And sometimes people don't
Right.
stick around long enough or
Right.
date long enough in a relationship in order to find that out. And you
Right.
wonder why,
Right.
like, oh my gosh, she dated this perfect guy and he ended up shooting her in the head. I hate to be that extreme, but stuff like that happens. Like, stuff that appears to be good or that you think is good, go on. They have this fairy tale love story and then bad things, just happen. But a lot of times we really don't get to know people,
Mm.
the way we need to know them. I feel like you need to see people
Right.
in and out of
Right.
different seasons.
Right.
I feel like you need to date them. Like, yes, we got engaged early, but we still continued on engaged for a little while to make sure that that was definitely what we wanted. Most certainly, make sure it was
But
what
God.
God wanted. Like we prayed heavenly. I think our what was it? Maybe 3 weeks into dating, I say, like we were going to church. At the time, I was leaving a church that I was a part of and looking for a new church. And he was also looking for a church home. And the church that we still attend to this day is the church that we visited while we were dating. And we joined, like, I think a couple of Sundays after going. And that's the church that we still worship and fellowship 9 years later to this day, and that church is our family. It's like second family to us. And the pastor of that church is also who married us. Him and his wife counseled us. We had premarital counseling because to me that's so important as well.
Yes, I was going to
And
touch on the
so
premarital
and
counseling.
so we took I wasn't playing. I wasn't gonna get married to be divorced. My parents were married for almost 20 years when they got a divorce. And you're similar?
Same thing.
Yeah,
We're
same thing. And
about
so
20 something years
we
in.
was like, we not repeating none of that. We didn't want that to be a generational curse for us that we continued into. We wanted to break it. So we were making sure we did everything that we could, to make sure we divorce proof, essentially,
And
our marriage.
and I was going to say about the premarital counseling. The premarital counseling is very vital and important, right? Because you have to put out on the table what are your deal breakers.
Right.
So if you don't have a value system, if you don't have standards, and if you don't have deal breakers, then pretty much certain things are going to happen in your relationship and you're going to question why is it happening, because you haven't set any boundaries.
Right.
You haven't set any standards.
So our video went dead on the last one, and we're just gonna pick up where we left off and actually get ready to close this video. We don't want to keep y'all all day today, but my husband did want to finish his thought on talking about deal breakers.
So pretty much the deal breakers, you know, you can find them out from you actually talking to a person for the first time. You know, it don't take, you know, a lot of time to really find out the core of a person. It takes time to get to know them, but if you put out what your value system is and what your boundaries are, and then this person is constantly going against that, then you have your answer right there. But if you choose to deal with them now, you're a willing participant in being unhappy and waiting to get the right person. So at the end of the day, you definitely want to do more talking and having dialogue, because before you do anything else, you have to converse with each other.
Right. And as you can probably hear, our children are up in the background. And like I was saying before, just make sure you allow God to equip you and prepare you in your single season for marriage, because trust me, there's so much that comes with marriage and having children that we have no idea about when we're single. There's so much stuff that you cannot prepare for. You won't know to prepare for those things. It's not to say it's a bad thing or anything to scare you.
Right.
But it just goes to show how important it is that, you know, you get advice from wise counsel, which is something that we do, which is why we're making this video, because, you know, we know what it's like to feel like you're waiting forever to get married, and we know what it's like to wait to have kids. We also have testimony on that. We've gone through miscarriages and things like that. All of this, you know, within the years that we've been together. And so that's why it's so important that you just make sure that the person that you're with is very grounded in whatever your faith is. We're Christians, so we believe in the Almighty, Jesus Christ. And honestly, it's God who's held this together.
That's all I got.
Well, that's all I have too. And we're going to save any and everything else that we have that we think would be good advice for you guys for future videos. Please let us know in the comments if there's anything that we talked about today that you want us to elaborate on or go more in depth on. We will definitely do another video for you. We thank you guys for tuning in, listening to our story. For all of my subscribers, I thank you all for watching all of my videos. And if this is your first time watching and you're not a subscriber, please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And we will see y'all in a future video. Stay blessed.
Stay blessed. Deuces.